Thursday, February 27th, 2025, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, today we're going to look at the budget resolution that passed in Congress and how it could actually add $20 trillion to the deficit in the next 10 years. And that's according to Republican, very conservative Representative Thomas Massie. So we'll look at that today. Before we go into that, just talk about a few things in the news. And before that as well, just wanted to thank all of you for the interest in the channel, your interest in the channel. And if you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed yet, think about doing so. Think about also hitting the little notification bell to be notified of all my new videos. I post a video virtually every day, and we also do a live stream, Clive Thompson and I, on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. UK time or 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, one interesting piece of news that came out late yesterday, I think, in the U.S., is that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, she will release the Epstein files and the transcripts, I think, of the flights to Lolita Island, whatever it's called, where they used to go to in the Caribbean. One thing that I would say about this Epstein list, it was out years ago on Scribd. And I went through it. That was even before Epstein was arrested or anything happened. It's probably 2017, 2018. And so it's nothing, it won't be anything new to me. I don't understand why there's such a big deal about it. Maybe the Department of Justice has more information, more juicy information. But one thing that I noticed, though, being here in the UK, is that a huge number, maybe even more than half of all the names in there, belong to the British elite, British aristocracy, people like Tony Blair, and people who have titles in front of their names. So that's something to keep an eye on, of course. And the other thing I would say about Epstein and his scheme is that, and I'm not going to get too deeply into this, but I think it's all got to do with blackmail at the highest level. I'm sure the mainstream media will probably not be covering it. Anyway, the other piece of news I wanted to talk about is about bullion banking, and not the LBMA kind, but the Indonesian kind. Bloomberg published a story yesterday. Indonesia, home to giant gold mine, launches bullion banking. I've read through the story, and Indonesia is a big country. For those of you who don't know, their population is, let's see here, almost 300 million people, 282 million. So it's almost the same population as the US, just a little less. Their purchasing power parity GDP, which is a good way of comparing GDP, is the eighth biggest in the world at $4.6 trillion. So it's a very significant country. And the reason for this bullion banking move, and this is by the government, it says here Indonesia has launched its first bullion banks in a bid to draw tons of privately held gold in the financial system of Southeast Asia's largest economy. The region's largest gold producer on Wednesday inaugurated gold banking services at state-owned PT Bank Syariah, Indonesia, and pawnbroker PT Pegadaian. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right. President Prabowo Subianto, speaking alongside dozens of ministers and other officials at a launch event in central Jakarta, said he hoped the move would accelerate savings and boost gold reserves, which he said were already the world's sixth largest. Well, that's like if you add the public's holdings, which I think it says here 1,800 tons, which is quite significant. But as a country itself, official reserves, they're way down on the list here. They only have like 47 tons. Yeah, so what do I think is happening here? Well, I think Indonesians who hold gold physically should be very careful of this. You cannot trust banks, especially bullion banks. And they've tried to do this, as the article says here, in other countries. The advent, and I'm quoting this story, the advent of bullion banking in Indonesia echoes similar efforts by Turkey and India in recent years to bring the large stashes of gold owned by ordinary citizens into the financial system. Both schemes met with mixed success, with many gold owners opting to still keep their precious metals at home. Yes, Indonesians, I would follow in the footsteps of the Turkish people and the Indian people. And why do I say that? Well, because you can't trust bullion banks. We're seeing what's happening in London at the LBMA. So how would I advise the Indonesian government on how to use its gold to boost the economy, to boost the currency? It's very simple. And a lot of times, unfortunately, politicians go for the complicated route. And why do they do that? Well, because there's always a scam involved. So the simplest way is to follow the US Constitution, which unfortunately the Americans aren't following at the moment, and to open mints all over the country in Indonesia and define the Indonesian rupee as a weight of gold and allow Indonesians to take their gold, to take their jewelry to the mint and have it minted into coins of any denomination that they want. And how would that be financed? Well, it's really simple. The mint would take 1% of that gold, and it's called seigniorage. And that would be, in my opinion, the best way to go about it. That's what helped America develop into an industrial powerhouse in the 19th century and early 20th century, before, unfortunately, the Federal Reserve Act was passed. So I wanted to put that out there. Be careful, Indonesians. So back to the U.S. budget resolution. You need to be careful. The budget hasn't been passed. It's just a resolution. Still has to go through the Senate. And then it has to be voted on as a full budget and then signed by President Trump. So I'm going to take this article here from the FT from yesterday. U.S. House passes budget resolution to cut taxes and spending by trillions. Sounds good. Bill would lead to large increases in government deficits, says independent analysts. And I'm not trying to put President Trump or the Republicans or MAGA down, because I think they're doing great things that wouldn't have been done by a Democratic administration. Case in point, USAID going after corruption in government, cutting the size of government. That's a good thing. Releasing this file today. Let's hope it's all like out in the open. Many things that they're doing, trying to stop the war in Ukraine, which for some reason the Europeans don't want to stop, which is crazy. But anyway, let's go through this article really quick and see what's going on here. U.S. House of Representatives has passed a budget resolution that calls for trillions of dollars in tax and spending cuts in a significant victory for President Donald Trump. as he seeks to enact sweeping changes in fiscal policy. Resolution passed by 217 to 215 votes after campaign by House Speaker Mike Johnson to push Republican holdouts to back Trump's big, beautiful bill. And I quote that, says the bill, which will kick off another round of budget talks in the Senate, proposes $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. And you might be asking, don't you like tax cuts? Of course I do. But the only problem is the next part of this sentence, which says about $2 trillion in spending cuts and allocating hundreds of billions of dollars for the military and border security over a decade. So I would much rather have seen that the spending cuts were $4.5 trillion to balance it. So why didn't they do that? Well, there's a few reasons. If they cut federal spending that much, $4.5 trillion, it will probably sink the economy into a recession. Unfortunately, over the past 50 years, government has gotten bigger and bigger. And the bigger government gets, the more dependent on government the economy becomes. And if you cut the size of government very quickly, you're going to drive the economy into a hole. So I think what they're hoping happens here is that the tax cuts encourage economic growth in the private sector. And I think it's a big gamble. Today, House Republicans moved Congress closer to delivering on President Trump's full America First agenda, not just parts of it, House Republican leaders said. Well, I really hope it works and that Republican Representative Thomas Massie is wrong. And why do I say that? Well, because I've watched Thomas Massie on with Tucker Carlson. I've listened to what he has to say. He has a lot of common sense. He's a pro-Trump Republican, and he voted against it. And this is what he says here from the FT article. It says, Thomas Massie was the only Republican to vote against it. Before the vote, Massie posted on X, and I quote, if the Republicans' budget passes, the deficits get worse, not better. So there you go. What else does he say here? Well, there's another post on X that he made. He says Congress just passed a Republican budget that will add at least $20 trillion to the debt over the next 10 years. So that's an extra $2 trillion a year, which is huge. It just goes to show how difficult it is once you inflate a big debt bubble and you're under a fiat currency system and the economy becomes more and more dependent on debt, how difficult it is to wean off that debt. And I think that's what's happening here. Well, Thomas Massie and I could be wrong. I'll stop right here and we'll quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 10 to 9 a.m. London. Yeah, we are 28.84, so down $31 in gold. But we could very easily go back up above 2,900 like we've just done. The high overnight is 29.21 and the low is 28.80. In terms of technicals, I like to look at this chart here that I've been following for the last few months because, or last year, because we finally broke out of it. It's a long-term quarterly chart of gold and it's logarithmic and it shows how gold is broken out. And I've spoken about this before. I think this is showing that the bullion banks are losing control of manipulating the price, setting the price, and I think we're going to have price discovery by the free market that's going to be explosive. I still believe in that. So yeah, just think of that, and I've made videos as well that talk about how when the bull market gets really going, and I've done that years ago, and I've repeated it over the years, and the title of these videos are Hold On to Your Gold and Silver for Dear Life. And why dear life? Well, because I think without them, your financial situation will be a lot worse going forward. Silver actually is not really doing that badly. You'd think silver would be down like over 2%, but silver is outperforming on the downside, which is unusual. It's at 31.71, only down 13 cents. The stock market, I see the Dow futures up 100, Nasdaq is up 120, and S&P up 30. I saw the Nvidia results were good, but the stock did nothing. It looks to me like the stock market looks top heavy. So I don't think it looks good for the stock market. The currencies are fairly steady. Yeah, with the exception of the yen, the dollar is pretty much unchanged. The dollar is up against the yen. The other commodities, crude is up 0.5%, WTI just below 69, so we've come below 70. High-grade copper is up 0.5% at 460. Key level there is still 480. And the bond market, yeah, let's have a quick look at the 10-year yield in the U.S. That is up 5 basis points at 430. I think we could still see the bond market continue to rally and yields continue to drop. But longer term, I think bond yields are on their way higher, and bond prices are on their way down. And I think government spending and deficit spending has everything to do with it. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.